this is what we did last week. We mixed some patches of green, and we mixed the complement of that green, which was this vermilion colour. And then we laid a block of green, if you remember rightly, by filling our brush and going across in one stroke and then going back into the palette, refilling the brush and then going over again, and thus being able to produce a large area of a flat colour. Then once we got our river of colour of green at this point, we then started to add, we washed our brush, and then we started with the red, and we put a big brush load of red across, so the two colours mix or fuse, which is what is, you know, makes watercolour very attractive, is when you can actually see evidence of colours fusing in a painting and it isn't dry looking. Then we carried on with the red until we got to the bottom. Now this area here where I used my hairdryer, I went in too closely with the hairdryer and it blew the colour or the pigment. So the little granules of pigment, which are what watercolour is, collected here and created a sort of smile line at the bottom. Yvonne asked me about the purple colour because she and I were both painting purple tulips.
Yeah.
And what I did say was that when you put watercolour down, it can look very strong initially, like this bit on the edge here, where it sort of, this is where the colour collected when I was drying it. But when it dries, it ends up quite a few shades lighter than what you think. So in a sense, if you put the colour down and it looks strong, don't worry about it, because the chances are by the time it's dried, it will be paler. Okay. Yeah. And then we did what was, I think, extremely useful, and I have been recommended to do this by a very good friend of mine who is an artist. Many years ago, he said to me, Sue, you need to learn with watercolor to paint without a pencil line. Yeah. Especially when you're doing flowers, because even if you do your pencil line very, very lightly, it's almost impossible to get rid of it. I did ask the group last week, and I don't know how many of them did it, but some of them did, to actually paint direct. And I painted direct. These two flowers and the leaves were painted without a pencil. It does take a good brush and B, a little bit of practice. Okay, I practice this, and this is my practice from the week. Can you see it? I'm just going to go in a bit closer. No, I won't. Oh. Unfortunately, you can't see the whole thing. Oh, yes, you can.
Yeah, I can.
Right, and put it on its side. These are all painted freehand, okay? No pencil line. It's just a couple of studies, and it takes quite a while to do. And what I do want to point out, again, with flowers, if you use too many washes on top of each other, you end up killing the freshness of the real thing. Yeah. And it's better to only do maximum, I would say, 3 washes. So for instance, we go back to this study that I did last week. I did a base of yellow, and then I did red over the top, and I diluted some of it with a little bit of water. And then when it was half dry, and before it was completely dry, I put a little bit of green, which I'd mixed up with the leaves, into where the shadow was on the petals. Yeah. Okay. Now, the other thing about watercolor is that if you try and paint wet paint on top of wet paint, it will just push the color around on your paper and it'll end up looking like mud. Yeah. So you have to be a bit patient. You have to wait for the first layer to dry off a bit, not go completely dry, but almost completely dry. And then you can drop other colors in and they kind of fuse like here. Yeah. And you get these beautiful, soft, natural mixtures and no edges and no tide lines, which is, you know, something, again, that takes a little bit of practice. And again, freehand, without a pencil. Okay. The paper, I don't know when I did it a while ago. The paper's shocking because it's doesn't like being washed off and things, and I did correct one or two things. But I'm going to try and go in closer so that you can just see, hopefully, the tulips in particular.
Yeah.
Now, the outer bit of the tulip is actually quite light. The inside of the tulip is much darker. And I think having light and dark in a flower or in a leaf or whatever you're painting, having a variety of tones does make the painting much more interesting.
Yeah.
When it was completely dry, I used a different technique. I used I use paint with a very fine brush, and I put a tiny little dark red line on the petals in places. I didn't go all the way around the edge of each petal because I think that looks ugly. But in places, I dropped in a little bit of dark red just to give a bit more definition. I don't know if you can actually see it.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah?
No, it shows it up beautifully.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, all these flowers, as I say, were done without doing a pencil line. And it just takes concentration and not rushing it. Okay. And it's really worth having a go at. And I was going to encourage you this afternoon, those of you who feel brave enough to do it, to actually work without a pencil line.